here tonight. Um, and so I see that we did just go live. So everyone who's watching later or on YouTube, welcome. But yeah, so once again, just a reminder, the sign in is at the very end. And that's going to be after risk management. We're just going to quickly go over risk management training, and then there's the sign in. But yeah, we can get started.
Hi, everyone. So I just wanted to quickly update what we're doing in the fundraising committee. So we recently started our first fundraiser of the year. The organization that we chose to donate to this time is called Pencils of Promise. And what they do is they build schools, train teachers, give scholarships, provide school supplies, lots of education related things to children in a lot of third world countries. Currently, there are 250 million children who are illiterate, and literacy is literally defined by being able to read a basic sentence. So there's 250 million children who cannot even read a basic sentence. So if what I said resonated with you and that's something that you want to help fix, then please Venmo at molding-doctors any amount that you can. Any amount helps. But if you do donate $5 or more, for every $5 you donate, you get one raffle entry to win an Amazon gift card. And there's going to be 3 winners, for one for $15, one for $25, and one for $50. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can contact me on GroupMe, or you can email us at that email down there.
Okay, so for our volunteering and programs this month, so we are still conducting classes with Mosaic Family Services. I'm sure you guys have heard about it through the emails, but we are basically leading classes just related to different topics like health, nutrition, arts and crafts, etc. So whoever's attended orientation already, please make sure you fill out the form that was sent in this email. Even if you didn't do the background check paperwork, that's fine, because that requirement is no longer necessary. So we'd like as many people as possible to help lead these classes. So just make sure that you fill out this form. And for those of you who already filled it out, I will be sending an email to you this week so that we can start planning those classes.
All right, and also Reading Partners North Texas, we have an update on that. So for everyone who filled out the interest form, thank you. We have about 20 students who were interested and went through the whole process to begin volunteering. Our first training session will be 1.5 hours, and it'll be this Saturday, October 24th at 10 a.m. It'll be on Zoom. So for those of you who completed that interest form, I'll actually send the Zoom link to everyone through our GroupMe, and also through an email to each and every one of you. Also, Reading Partners North Texas is still accepting volunteers. So even if you have not completed that interest form, you still do want to volunteer, go ahead and check out that website. I linked it in our slides, so go ahead and check that out. It's really, really simple just to get started with the whole volunteer process, and it's for a really good cause as well. So if you are looking for volunteer opportunities, this is a great one for sure. Also, MCAT workshops, I'm in charge of that as well. So our second MCAT workshop is going to be Saturday, November 7th. It's going to be 1.5 hours as well, from 2 p.m. to around 3:30. The location will be on Zoom. So for everyone who is interested, I'll send you guys a Zoom link, and I'll also put in our GroupMe as well. And this time's topic is going to be about resources, planning a schedule, and staying motivated during your preparation. I know this is a very, I know a lot of members are very, very interested in this topic as well. So I'm looking to get great turnout, and I'm going to do my best to make the slides as excellent as possible. This time I will record this session. So for anyone who can't make it, we will have those slides available afterwards. But if you are interested, there is a QR code up top. Go ahead and scan that and fill out that interest form just so I can get your name and email, and I can go ahead and send you guys the Zoom link and the slides by November 6th. And I look forward to seeing everyone there.
also just a disclaimer, we will post all these slides. Well, for one thing, it's recorded on YouTube. We will also post it on Monday. And any links that you guys see in the PowerPoint should be in our link tree. So if you ever need to look back at it or you're undecided, you can check out that.
Hey guys, just a couple of updates regarding additional programs we have. So for Apps 101, for those of you who are in it, you should receive feedback on your pre-writes by the end of this weekend, in addition to just a sheet that gives you some differences between MCAS and TMDSAS, because we generally focus on the TMDSAS app. In addition, I'll make sure to send you the bio form as well, which you can kind of complete while you're doing the Apps 101 assignments. That's not a requirement for the assignments, but something that you can start to fill out for your HPE process. And just a reminder that the next assignment, which is your employment activities section, that's going to be due on Friday, October 30th, which is next Friday. In addition to that, we had our first Today in Scientific Discovery session last week on Wednesday, and we'll make sure I'll work with Kimia to upload that to our website soon. In terms of mentorship, we're working on having a mentorship with TCOM for next semester, but I did speak to a third-year medical student from Texas A&M yesterday, and we're looking to start an allopathic one sometime soon. So I will send out a link to you guys in the email and see how many of you are interested, and go ahead and fill that out, and we can go from there. But that's pretty much it.
All right, so let's stay on the slide for 1 second. So Luis isn't here, but he's also in charge of the UTD mentorship program, where we pair upperclassmen and underclassmen. So all of the pairings should have been sent out, and it looks like most of you guys have completed your first assignment. So great job on that. Second assignment should be sometime, it's probably already sent out. But yeah, so make sure you're utilizing that resource and talking to your mentor, talking to your mentee, not just in a pre-med sense, but make sure just to check up on them, make sure their mental health is okay, make sure you guys are keeping each other accountable. But yeah. All right, so that's it for our updates and announcements. If you guys have any questions regarding those programs, feel free to type in the chat whenever, or message one of the officers on GroupMe. But yeah, so let's get into our panel. We will be discussing a set of pre-med and MCAT questions, and our lovely three guests here will give their input and experience on how things went for them and what they can do to help you. Just like last meeting with the pre-med timeline, this is not an end-all be-all advice / timeline. This is everyone's experience is different. So yeah, just don't be discouraged or anything if it doesn't necessarily line up with what your plan is. So yeah, and feel free to ask them additional questions in the chat at any point. So we have Cheyenne, Faraz, and Noreen. So I'm gonna let you guys introduce yourselves, starting with Cheyenne.
Sure. Well, hey everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Cheyenne, and I actually just graduated a couple months ago. I majored in healthcare studies on a pre-med track, and so I'm taking this gap year now to kind of worry about my medical school application, kind of waiting to hear back from some schools on interviews. But I like to spend my free time working with music and just trying to get some more healthcare experience as well in my gap year. So that's a little bit about me.
Hi guys, my name is Faraz Azam. As you can see, I'm a senior. I'll be graduating this December with a BS in biology, and I'm like towards the end of all my interviews, but I'll be attending UT Southwestern next fall as a MS1.
Hi everyone, my name's Noreen. Like Faraz, I'm a senior graduating this December. I'm getting my Bachelor's of Science in Neuroscience, and I'm currently applying and reviewing my options for MD PhD programs. So yeah.
All right, so the first question is, what extracurricular activities were you involved in? How dedicated were you to these activities? And you guys can go in any order.
Sure. I mean, I can give my input here. So then, for extracurricular activities, a lot of the hours, I guess, like volunteering hours, came from organizations such as either Molding Doctors or AED. And so there are plenty of opportunities with both of those organizations and many others as well. If you're trying to obtain just any sort of, whether it's healthcare or non-healthcare related like activities that you want to put on your application. But extracurriculars beyond volunteering, I guess, I mean, if you have any like hobbies that you are really into, that's definitely something important to make a note of on your application as well, whatever personal hobby that may be. And so extracurriculars, other than that, I mean, maybe clinical research, or I don't know, would the clinical research fall under extracurricular, or is that kind of involved with the academic things?
I would say it's more academic, like research wise.
Yeah.
I don't consider research extracurricular.
Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, I want to get their input.
All right.
So personally for me, I took extracurricular activity as a chance for me to kind of further my passions and why I really want to pursue medicine. Because when I first started off my undergraduate career, like as a freshman, my motivations for pursuing medicine were different than what they are now. Like right now, they're mainly focused on helping educate people and on like in terms of like health literacy or things such as that. So on my application, my extracurricular activities really reflected that, as in like being involved with mentorship, being part of like such as like the mentorship program offered here through Molding Doctors, or like freshman mentor program. I felt like those activities showed my long-term commitment as I stayed in those for more than just one semester. Beyond that, as was mentioned, doing things that like you really personally enjoy, I feel were a big plus, at least for me when I was going through interviews, because in every single one of my interviews I've had so far, they all asked me about the stuff that was not academic. I mean, of course, they asked me about like my GPA, my MCAT, my research, but they also every single time brought up things that I did. For example, I was part of the powerlifting club here at UTD, and they asked me about my experience in that. Then they talked about my time as being involved in the rugby club here. So these kind of things, they really help make you a well-rounded person. And as cliche as that is, they always tell you to be well-rounded. But just taking time to like help develop your own personality aside from just academics, I feel really helped bring together my whole application as like a candidate for this fall.
Mine was a little different because I knew that I wanted to do MD PhD pretty early on. I focused heavily on the research side. So I know that's not an extracurricular, but that's what I did. And then for my actual main extracurricular activities, I mostly did the Neuroscience Student Association and Model UN. And like Faraz was saying, these were places where I could develop my own passions. And while I didn't get that much clinical exposure through those things, they really helped to develop me as a person. And in my interviews, we mostly talked about Model UN. And then I also really like to paint. And so a lot of my one-on-one faculty interviews was taken up by talking about like different painting methods and things like that. So yeah, if you can show that you're a human and you have interests outside of medicine, that's what they're probably going to be talking to you about, because they've already seen your MCAT scores, your GPA. They know that you're qualified to be in that position to be interviewing. And now they just want to get to know you as a person.
Also, to build on that, because everyone's stuck at home, this is a great opportunity to find what you really enjoy. A lot of you guys here are freshmen, and you've been asking like people. Like, what do I do? Like, there's not volunteering opportunities, there's not shadowing, there's not scribing. All of that is great, but you also have to find those hobbies that you're interested in. One, because you're not going to get that opportunity as much as in undergrad, because there's so many organizations and people that you can find things in common with. And two, like Noreen's saying and Faraz is saying, those things are important because doctors, they're not like admissions committee, they're not looking for robots, you know, they're not looking for purely someone who has the knowledge. They want someone who is, like Faraz said, well-rounded, and that means to have pretty much a life outside of academics, because you have to understand emotions, and you have to understand how to detach yourself. They do this also to prevent burnout, to kind of assess, okay, if this student attends, if all they do is study every single day, research every single day, they're going to eventually hit a burnout point, and they don't like that. They don't like to see that either. So that could actually hurt you. So that's why you have to have these other activities, academic and non-academic extracurricular activities.
To build off of what Faraz was saying too, when you get into your interviews, and let's say your first question is, tell me about yourself, you can steer the rest of the interview in a direction where you want it to go. If your strength is something that's maybe not academic and you just want to talk more conversationally about something that you genuinely have a passion for, or just interest outside of medicine, you can totally take it in that direction. And then it would just be a very conversational, casual interview. So that's an option as well.
And then we have a question actually regarding gap years. So there's actually a slide regarding gap years, so we'll address that question. All right, next question. All right, so speaking of research, did you guys do research, and is it necessary? And if you guys interviewed or have been on that admissions cycle or process, did it come up? And if it did come up, how much did it come up?
Wow.
I'll go first on this one, just because mine is a unique situation. Yes and yes. My interviews for MD PhD were basically all about my research, and then hobbies.
Okay.
For my experience, oh yeah, like as I mentioned, I'm gonna go to UT Southwestern for MD. So me being MD versus Noreen's MD PhD is a little bit different. So did I do research? I actually did a lot of research, just because when I was coming in, I was kind of confused on whether or not I wanted to do MD PhD versus MD. So if you guys are on like that, I guess like if you're trying to make the decision, I would recommend doing research, because I really got that experience going through many of like the long-term research projects. Like I had my PI at UT, and then Noreen and I also did Green Fellowship this spring. So going through that long-term experience really lets you figure out if you want to do a career in research versus health professional like studies. And is it necessary? So on all the schools that I went to, some of the other students I talked to, as well as like the MS1s, MS2s, MS3s, etc., there were actually surprisingly a lot of people who had no research. But what I'm going to say is that research isn't necessary, but if you're not going to do research, just like I'd recommend putting like your efforts into another aspect of your application.
Yeah, and similarly, research, like Faraz said, isn't 100%, I guess, necessary, but it does depend on what sort of school you're going to. If you're going to a really research-heavy institution, it is seen as a strength to have that research experience. And of course, it depends if you're an MD candidate versus MD PhD. So MD PhD, of course, you're going to have to do research and explain your motivation to pursue that field. But as far as MD candidates go, yeah, it's not like a requirement set in stone. But it's good to do even just a little bit, just to say in the interview or wherever, or even for yourself, that, hey, I tried research, it wasn't for me, or maybe it was for me and I have this experience, now I want to build off of it from there. So whichever way you want to go with it, you can go. I personally didn't do, I guess, traditional science research. I did more clinical research. So if y'all have heard of the program TEMRAP, so what we do is we go to Parkland in Dallas. And so in their emergency department, we conduct clinical studies on just various topics, such as health literacy, the connection between anxiety and depression with chest pain, or just various studies like that. And they're all based on like pretty much survey studies. They're not like, we don't inject anyone with anything, obviously. It's not like a medication study. It's just very verbal, and it's a great way for you to get comfortable talking with patients and other providers in the healthcare field. So that was kind of what I did for like 2.5 years. I have that sort of clinical research. But yeah, it's not 100% necessary, but it just very depends on what your path is. And so just so you know, I guess personally, I have an interview coming up with Texas Tech Lubbock on Friday, and then or next Friday, and then UTMB a couple days after, and I'm waiting to hear from the rest of them. So just for like, to know the context of research and what I've done.
So solid advice. I will say, like everyone was saying, make sure you really enjoy it, because in your interviews, it will come up. And if you are not interested, as you claim in your application, they will ask those questions, because part of interviewing is researching your interviewers. Sometimes they'll tell you, sometimes they won't. But if that interviewer has done research in that field, they will ask you questions. And if you don't know the answer, it's going to be very apparent that you just did it just to pad your resume.
But yeah, like based off what he just said, I can definitely second that. So in my time at Greenfellows, I did work in basically a lung cancer lab, and one of my interviewers at at Southwestern like knew my PI personally, and then he like grilled me on my research, and it was really like, I'm not gonna lie, pretty intimidating, but thankfully like I was able to like steer into a more favorable direction. And then but yeah, definitely make sure if you do research, like be interested in it, or have like a solid reason why you're not interested in it.
All right, next question. All right, so what are the benefits of taking a gap year? Did you guys do one? And what did you guys consider it? And what have you guys been doing if you are in your gap year?
I highly recommend a gap year personally. I don't know if that's just me being biased, but so it's a great way. Okay, here, I'll put it this way. From those that I've spoken to on the admissions committee at Southwestern, for example, they have told me that, actually, I think it was the director of admissions or something at Southwestern even said this. They like gap years, actually. This is not to say like you have to do gap year, obviously. And plenty of people from both sides get into medical school, but it is a great opportunity for people to gain experience and some maturity, getting more healthcare experience, or just building on your application wherever you need to build on it. That's a great place to do it. I mean, the one drawback of applying in your junior year on a traditional cycle is that you don't get to include most of your senior year experiences. And so if you end up not having enough experiences to fill your application between freshman and junior year, that could be a drawback. Now, it just depends. Everyone's different. Maybe between freshman and junior year, you had plenty to do. That's fine. You don't need a gap year unless it's for personal reasons. If you just wanted a break, or if you wanted to travel or do whatever else you wanted, your hobbies. So the benefits, though, like I said, you get to include your senior year experiences on your application. You get to gain more healthcare experience. You can work in the healthcare field, whatever you want to do. You have time to de-stress and just kind of prepare yourself mentally for medical school. Whether or not you take a gap year, there's going to be a learning curve in your difficult science courses. And so it doesn't matter whether you prepare as much in your gap year, or if you just go straight into it. Either way, you're going to have to adapt really quickly to the new medical school situation. So at that point, I asked myself, why not? I just wanted to take it easy and do what I can to gain my experience, and that's it. So gap years are good. Oh, and someone also asked, how does a gap year work logistically with HPE and LOR, letter of recommendations? So if I were to address that, so gap year, let's see. So with HPE, you start the HPE process kind of like in the very beginning of spring to like the end of fall. I guess, so like, let's say, okay, I'm trying to think. If you are taking, okay, let's say you're a junior right now and you're watching this, and we're in the, is it spring right now?
It's fall.
Fall. Gap years do that too. Okay, it's fall. So it's fall right now. And so by the end of this fall, so like December, you may start getting more into the HPE process, and they're going to start sending you emails and saying, hey, sign up for this or go to this meeting. You start that process then. And then in your spring, next semester, you're going to be working on pre-writing your essays and your application and things like that, just kind of preparing that way, starting to ask for letters of recommendation in the spring. So regardless of when you take your gap year, pretty much a year ahead of time, you're going to start your application, as in pre-writing everything, and just thinking about who you want to ask for your letters of recommendations. And that's going to happen like the spring before you apply. So like if I were to apply in fall, or if I were to apply in spring 2021, in spring 2021, like the beginning of spring, that's when I would start asking for letters of recommendation. And you want to give them at least a month or two to write you a very strong letter of recommendation. So that's how that would work.
Right. Basically, just push everything 1 year. Like nothing changes.
Exactly.
Just whatever you do in your junior year, you do it in your senior year. And yeah, HPE letters of recommendation, that all stay the same. I will say if you're undecided about a gap year and you go through the HPE process in your junior year, and you go through the orientation and all the process, but then spring semester you decide, oh wait, actually I do want to take a gap year, they will save that your HPE application. All you have to do is reapply in your senior year and just write down whatever advisor you had and want to reassign with them somewhere in the email or application, and they'll have everything set up for you. But you don't have to attend the orientation, you just have to fill out the form again. But yeah, Faraz, Noreen, have you guys ever considered a gap year? Well, I guess you guys are technically taking a gap semester each.
Yeah, I was thinking about taking a gap year, maybe to do more research or something to like benefit my application a little. But then I decided to just go for it, just because it's going to be 8 years. And I was like, maybe I don't want to spend an extra year.
Yeah, I personally never really considered a gap year just because I was just really excited to go to medical school basically, and I was like just wanted to apply and go through interviews and all that, and kind of in the same boat with Noreen, like med school's already a long time, and then like I want to go into neurosurgery, so that's gonna take like another like billion years. So I'd rather not be like 45 by the time I'm out. So I'd rather save that 1 year.
All right, so we have a question from Jacob. He asks, what do you guys plan to do in the gap semester?
I wanted to travel and I made all these plans, but now it's not going to happen. So I might take a cross-country road trip, but if not, I don't know. I'll just vibe a lot.
Yeah, like kind of the exact same thing. Like I really wanted to travel. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to all these different states. I'm gonna cross off stuff on my bucket list. And as of right now, I'm kind of rethinking that. So I'll probably honestly just I'll probably like join like my parents like in their business, which is like completely unrelated to healthcare, just because I want to get different perspective. So I've been kind of in a science bubble for the last 4 years or 3.5 years. So it was kind of refreshing to do something different for a while.
Yeah. Cheyenne, did COVID ruin your gap year?
It very much did. Well, I mean, I'm still hopeful. We have well, I have about a semester left or so. It's like October now, so semester and a month or two left of my gap year. Um, I'll make the most of it. You know, what that's all we can do at this point. But just gotta see what happens.
I guess while we're on the subject, other general things you can do is the basics are you can research, you can travel, you can work in a clinical setting. You could probably travel and do like some clinical aspect, like medical trips in another country. Um, or you can do what Cheyenne is doing, which is a boatload of things. But yeah.
Yeah, as long as you're not, if you're taking a gap year, the only thing you don't want to be doing is nothing. And that's something that was drilled into my brain too. At least even one or two things that you can just stick to and just get good at it, whatever it could be. And so, yeah, just keep yourself busy and have something to talk about in your interviews. They're going to bring it up. So,
and yeah, if you guys want a more detailed gap year stuff, we talked about it in the last meeting, so just go back and watch that video. But we're going to move on to the next question. So, what was the hardest obstacle you encountered as a pre-med student, and how did you deal with it? That might be COVID, but hopefully not.
For me, I think besides the MCAT, which is obviously a very hard exam, I think getting clinical experience was difficult, and this is probably a really unique situation, but I didn't do any shadowing, but I scribed for 1,000 hours. And so like for my application, it was a little off balanced. But yeah, I guess the hardest obstacle should have been for me to like go out and find new people to talk to and shadow and try out new things. But
this is an obstacle I think that many people may face too, including myself, and still a little bit myself right now, is public speaking. And so this is a big barrier to obtaining leadership positions for many people, including myself at the time. This was like freshman, sophomore year. I was deathly afraid to go up and talk to people, especially groups of people. And so I kind of got mad at myself for that. And I applied to be a biology 2 TA because I knew that it would put me in a workshop filled with like 30 students, and it would force me to just kind of get over this. And it was really rough in the beginning, I will say. But it turned out to be really worthwhile doing that. It kind of set the way for me to like continue seeking leadership opportunities, or just any opportunities where I'm speaking in front of people. Like even right now when I'm standing here and talking to you guys, if I tried this in freshman or sophomore year, I would be like bullets. So it's just those sorts of personal obstacles. The best you can do is really just put yourself in an uncomfortable position and just push through and try your best in that. So that was for me personally.
For me, I guess the hardest obstacle wasn't really an obstacle. It's kind of like a constant battle. It was trying to deal with like life outside of being pre-med, because like being pre-med often is like pretty all-encompassing. It takes up all your time. You're like, oh, yeah, think about where I'm a shadow, where I'm a volunteer, where I'm gonna do research. But like sometimes in life, like things such as like bad relationships or losing a family member or like financial difficulties, those things come up. So for me, like I had to deal with like a lot of family type of trouble, especially while I was studying for the MCAT my junior year. So that was the most difficult thing to do. And I think the biggest way that I overcame that was just like, I guess in a way, like putting that into like my motivation for medicine, as nerdy as that sounds. But like my family members that I just struggle with, they struggle with like some diseases. So then like those kind of experiences showed like a different side of medicine. And I thought that like, aside from like being there for my family and kind of dealing with the trauma myself, I sought to like learn from it, because being in medicine, being a doctor, it doesn't really wait for like you to get over tough times in your life. You're a doctor, you're there to help people. You're there to like selflessly serve people for like a majority of your life. So going through those like difficult times like was hard, but it taught me not only to focus on where I wanted to go and who I wanted to be, but also to learn from difficult situations.
And I just wanted to add one more thing that I just remembered, but I think imposter syndrome is also really big for basically everyone, no matter what field you're in, and figuring or like making yourself understand that you belong there and you're worthy of the time, attention, resources that people are giving and that you're giving to yourself and all the hard work that you're putting in. It's going to pay off. Just there are different ways that you can deal with that. The way I dealt with it was, I guess, just turning to my friends and my family for moral support. But yeah, just know that everyone goes through it, and you're going to overcome it one day.
So did any of those like hardships, did that come up in your interviews?
For me, it was a big part of my personal statement. So it definitely did come up, especially like with the generic, why do you want to be a doctor? Since it did play a huge role in why I wanted to be a doctor and what I wanted to communicate as a doctor and use my platform for. It came up in every one of my interviews.
Nice. And I asked that because a lot of people, like, it's very common, like you know, you can't control life. You will get thrown curveballs, and you will have a rough semester or even a year, and that is sometimes apparent, whether that's in your personal statement or your application through like a rough semester of GPA, low grades, and that's your time, if you haven't already, to explain in your interview why that happened. And if you can explain it in a way they understand and that explains your lower grades, that will actually turn into a benefit, because you will that proves to them that if they can deal with it in this stage of life, they can probably deal with it in medical school. And of course, when they're a physician, they can balance a tough semester. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And then also on the secondary applications for these universities, a lot of the times they will ask you something about, you know, overcoming a challenge or anything like that. So those sort of answers that you give are fair game in the interview. So like you were asking just now, did any of these obstacles come up in the interview? It very well could, wherever you go, especially if it's one of the questions on the secondaries. But I haven't had my first interview is next week, so tune in.
All right, so we have a question. Someone asked, Shreyas asked, did you ever get sick during your pre-med years, and how did you guys deal with it?
Sick as in physical sickness or sick of pre-med?
No. I think physical sickness.
Oh, okay. No, thankfully, it's a really big blessing.
I haven't either personally. I mean, I've dealt with things here and there, but not like anything to where I wouldn't be able to pursue pre-med normally. Yeah.
I guess like for me, the biggest, most impactful sickness I had was I had bronchitis my freshman year. So I was like sick for like a month, and I did bad on 2 Gen Chem 2 tests, and I was just destroyed. I was so sad. But then it turned out all right. So if you do end up getting sick, just like make sure that, just realize that, just don't freak out, don't stress, focus on getting better, and realize that you have chances to make up a bad grade or like catch up on a research project, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you'll have opportunities to explain yourself if you did get sick along the journey on your application, whether it's the primary essays or you know, the secondary application. Sometimes they ask you, is there anything else that you want to let us know about your application, or that would help us guide us through our decision or something like that. That's an opportunity for you to talk about any hardship that you faced as well. So
there is a phrase called pain is temporary, GPA is forever. Do not listen to that phrase. Take care of your health. You know, you can always retake that class, but you can't heal you can't postpone your healing. So we got a couple of questions, but we'll address those. Cheyenne, if you want to address the question specific to you in the chat. And then Rishali asked, do you guys ever feel like you were doing too little or too much? And how did you deal with that?
I always felt like I was doing too little, but then when I looked at my schedule, I was like, oh, wait a second, I have no free time. So it's just a really hard balance to strike, like between what you personally think that you need to do and like, you know, if you compare yourself to others or all these things that go into the pre-med mentality. And so when I finally realized that, you know, I think this is too much. So at the time I was studying for my MCAT, I was working in a lab at UTD about 20 hours a week. And I was also scribing, which is also about 20 hours a week. And so after that, I realized that, you know, this probably isn't the best idea. And so I started cutting back on the research that I was doing at UTD because I was also beginning to transition into the Green Fellowship. And I also quit my job scribing because I'd done it for quite a while and realized that there were probably other things that I should do or that I would like to be doing instead. But yeah, that's how my situation works.
For me,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I was gonna say that. For like the too much or too little thing, I basically my entire pre-med career I felt like I was doing too little because I did probably like the biggest mistake that you can do as pre-med, and that's to compare yourself against other people. You should never compare yourself against other people because for whatever reason you'll always somehow find the person that's doing more than you or doing more than you in that specific thing. And I kind of realized that when I was studying for MCAT, and I was like just like killing myself like all winter break between my junior year and senior year, between my first semester, second semester, junior year. And then I kind of realized that like I took a deep breath. I understood that it was gonna be all right. I'm doing enough. And I had to realize that it's not the end of the world if I don't hit my MCAT score. It's not the end of the world if I don't get a certain check mark on my application.
All right, thank you guys. So we'll go to the next question, and this should be the last question for the pre-med questions, and then we'll move on to the MCAT questions. So of course, while all of this is important, we just talked about how you have to take care of your health if you get sick physically, but also mentally. So how did you guys take care of your mental health during this process? And did you guys have any low points where that you got really challenged by that?
So taking care of your mental health, like Sri was saying, is very important. You can't really put that off, but you have to do the best you can. For me personally, just staying grounded with life, doing anything that you enjoy. So personally, like I was saying before the meeting started, we're talking about like music production for me and singing and things like that. Those things kind of allow me to escape some of the academic side of life, you know, and I can pursue things I enjoy in my more personal life. So that's kind of what I do in my free time. I enjoy weightlifting. That's extremely important. Any sort of exercise that you can get into would help a lot with your mental health. Just taking care of your diet because, you know, I was reading actually, I think like 95% of your serotonin is produced in your intestines. You want to take care of your diet. That's just a little thing I read earlier, but just anything that you can keep yourself busy with outside of school is a good way to keep yourself grounded.
Yeah, I second that. My mental health was not good during sophomore and junior years. And that's because I really didn't care about it. And I thought that, well, to succeed, you have to be sacrificing something. And mental health should not be that. So yeah, like I said, I painted a lot. I watched a lot of TV, listened to some good music, and just took it one day at a time, really.
Yeah, like as mentioned before, taking care of your mental health cannot be overstated. There are many times in my career at UTD that I struggled, like personally, whether that be related to pre-med or other ways. But yeah, like just finding a time for your passions, joining a sport if you're into sports, reading, joining clubs that aren't exactly related to what it can add to your application. And also on top of that, it's like doing things that like just hanging out with people, like having a good, strong social support network is like fantastic. Like, for me, like one of like my worst, I guess like the point where my mental health was like the worst was like starting my sophomore year. I was going through a tough time, so I joined like a fraternity on campus, and I met some of like my closest friends. And that I joined like the rugby team, and that became like a second friend group to me. And then from there, it's just been up. Like I've had like amazing people who I look up to, like good role models, good support system to get my mind off of it, and they help me really reach like a balance in life, because I feel like a career in medicine, it's probably the best example of something that's not a sprint, it's like a marathon. Because if you don't figure out ways to take care of your mental health in undergrad, med school is only going to get tougher. Beyond that, residency is going to be on. It's always going to be something that you still have to do. So prioritizing to take care of your mental health while you're in a relatively more comfortable setting, such as UTD or undergrad in general, is really important.
And Rochelle actually asked in the chat, and it kind of relates to this question. They asked that, did you ever feel like you were doing too little or too much, and how did you deal with that? That kind of ties into this too. Some people, including myself, have this problem where they accept too many responsibilities, or like whatever the case may be. It's hard to say no to people. And so like you may take up more tasks and responsibilities than you are reasonably handle. And so you have to have a good understanding of what you're capable of doing yourself and what your limits are, so that you don't overwhelm yourself. And any extracurriculars that you do, any research, academic course load, whatever you want to call it, those are all things that you need to keep in mind. But just kind of, I'm still working on it personally. I need to get better about managing that. And that also ties into time management as well. So setting reasonable deadlines for things that you do. And so, how did I deal with that? Still dealing with it. Still have to get more comfortable about speaking on, hey, maybe I won't be able to take care of this particular responsibility at the moment, but definitely the thing I can take care of down the road. Or something, just being honest about things with yourself. So yeah, that's kind of what I would do for that.
All right, so we're just about done, but with this side, but I want to give one last piece of advice regarding mental health. And this is something I heard from, I think, a med student. She was one of our guest helpers during Cynic. But basically, she told me during your undergrad, you're mentally exhausted because you are constantly worried about getting into medical school. And there's a lot of uncertainty of what you're doing is the right thing or not. And getting like most of your 4 years are spent mentally worrying about that. And it's very taxing. Once you're in medical school, you are physically tired. And this is mainly regarding the clinical rotations, because it hits you hard. You are not used to waking up at sometimes 4 a.m. to get ready, prepare your notes for roundings and presentations. And then it's long days. It's like 30-hour shifts sometimes. And then once you're an actual doctor, it's emotionally taxing because you have to deal with death. You have to deal with saying no to patients. So it's very, it's very emotional taxing. So mental emotion or mental health in undergrad physical health in your medical school, and then emotional health in your once you're a physician. At least that's what I've heard, and it really changed the way I viewed the process I'm in. But of course, there's each of everything in each stage. But I thought that was really important. All right, so we're done with that. We are going to our, okay, sorry, we actually have one last question. So real quick, what would you do differently if you had to go back?
I would have
Yeah.
done things. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you can go ahead.
I think that I would have done things that I never would have thought about doing, like joining like the fencing club, which is something that I was interested in, but I never decided to actually take up. You know, just something that is super cool, something that I would never get to do later on.
I think the biggest thing I would have done differently is that I would have had I would have had more fun. I wouldn't have been so like obsessed with trying to get as many accolades on my resume, because even now, like, it all turned out fine. Like, I just stressed out all those years, and like now I'm like sitting on like these acceptances, and I was like, okay, well, I'm only gonna go to one school, so why did I need to bust my ass to like cater to all these different schools? So honestly, I regret that I let pre-med consume a lot of my free time, and I wish I'd given more time to like friends and family, especially family, because like yeah, my older sister also goes to med school, and I see like how little time she goes to spend with our parents and my little sisters. So then I definitely would have taken more time to spend time with them.
Yeah, definitely what Faraz was saying is that you don't want to stress yourself out to the point where your life is miserable just because you are a pre-med student. Obviously, some stress is normal, but you don't want to wake up every day hating your life. So just kind of be careful with that. So whatever he was saying is very accurate. Personally, if I were to say something different in my 4 years, I actually majored. So I majored in healthcare studies very vaguely. I mean, my friend told me, hey, you know, this is a good major for pre-meds, you should do it. And I'm glad I did it. It's a very great way to learn about the US healthcare system and stuff. But by the end of my 4 years, I grew interested in public health. So I kind of wish I majored in public health, just so I would have more of a formalized understanding of the public health aspect of medicine. But I would have maybe taken up some more maybe like leadership roles or things that are outside of my comfort zone earlier on, because a lot of those things kind of happened towards the second half of my junior year and senior year. So I would have kind of maybe pushed for that a little earlier, but there's never any rush. So.
All right, so thank you guys. Looks like we actually have a few questions. So someone on our YouTube chat asked, how do you all embrace failure and learn to be stronger from it? And then Ria asked, how would you deal with getting rejected and needing to apply the cycle after? So very on point with each other. So anyone who wants to take that? And sorry, quickly, so anyone who has to leave, I know we're kind of running late or bleeding a little bit onto the next hour, but that's okay. You can just look at the YouTube video after to find the sign-in QR code, and that's open till whenever. As long as you answer the question, you can get MD points for that whenever. But yeah.
So for how do you embrace failure and learn to be stronger from it? Personally, you have to kind of look at failure as, or you have to be open to constructive criticism. So when it comes to failure, maybe there was a particular thing you did that, you know, didn't allow you to have that opportunity, something you want to learn from. I know that's very cliche, but, you know, maybe at that moment, it wasn't the right thing for you. Maybe you weren't ready for that one opportunity, or maybe someone else was a little bit more prepared for it. And so you just kind of take that and learn what you need to do for next time and just kind of apply that in the future. Or maybe even a better opportunity would come in the future. personally, I mean, I applied like 2 times in a row to become, I think it was a peer tutor or a PLTL leader. I forgot. I think it was both of them, and 2 semesters apart. I was rejected twice, both times, and so I just waited. As far as like, I was trying to get some leadership opportunities, so that's kind of why I did that. And so I waited, and through TAMRAP, I was able kind of put myself out there, and I was able to become a guru and a research coordinator. So like, there's better things waiting for you in the future, and don't get too hung up on one failure. Just kind of learn from that and keep, is how I would look at it.
All right. Does anyone want to take Ria's question? How would you deal with getting rejected? All of you guys are applying or have applied. And so what would you have done differently if you did get rejected and if you had to reply the cycle after?
I'm pretty sure that you can reach out to the schools that have passed on you this cycle and ask them what they thought about your application, what you can improve on. And reaching out to them will help you kind of regroup for the next year and kind of tell you your weak points that you can really strengthen. But yeah, it's like about keeping your mental state good, because you're gonna be facing failures for the rest of your life, and just keep at it.
And the overall acceptance rate to medical school nationally is about 40%, or something close. So 60% of people that don't make it, what do you think they do? They a lot of them reapply. And so as long as your application is not exactly the same, and you're using that extra year to continue building your application and maturing in whatever way that you can, that's reasonable, and that's definitely, there's no problem with reapplying. Yeah, as long as you just don't remain the same person, you want to building and stuff, but that's how you should approach reapplying. Very common, and there's nothing wrong with it. So.
I will say, like Noreen is saying, most schools, at least a lot of schools, have where you can come back and meet up with them. Usually in June, I believe, after the whole cycle ends. Some schools actually don't let you know. They deny your request to find out what went wrong. But you can also talk to the HBAC counselors, and they will usually recommend either doing a post-bac or like during, obviously, if you get rejected, you're taking essentially a gap year. And in those gap year, you have lots of options. And usually what they recommend is, first and foremost, learning what went wrong. And if you're lacking hours in certain thing like shadowing, or if you basically never volunteered, obviously that's going to be a red flag that you have to go and fix during your gap year. So honestly, it just depends what you need to do.
Oh, also, when you said shadowing, that kind of reminded me. I'm sure that people are wondering how many shadowing hours you need when you're applying to medical school. 50 is like the bare minimum for like almost every school. It's not like an officially stated rule anywhere, but like that's a very just minimal level. 100 is recommended, and then 200 looks very good. That's just kind of like the range you want to play with. And this is coming from admissions committee at Southwestern, so it may be different depending on the school, but that's kind of what you could shoot for.
Well, it's a good thing Cheyenne is in the meeting, because yeah, he does virtual shadowing. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So the virtual shadowing that we do right now, the pre-health virtual shadowing with Dr. Fowler, medical schools don't recognize it officially as shadowing hours, but it is a great opportunity to take initiative during the COVID pandemic. Schools will see that. I mean, obviously they're understanding that pandemic has limited a lot of people's options to seek clinical opportunities right now. And the fact that you're even going into virtual shadowing and trying to do what you can, it speaks volumes. And so that's something you can talk about. But Dr. Salazar, if you keep up with virtual shadowing, you may have heard of Dr. Salazar. He's starting a new virtual shadowing program. It's called the UT Southwestern Virtual Clinical Observation Program, and that is set to start in November. We're going to actually be recording patient-physician interactions. They're actors and stuff, but real doctors explaining how to interact with patients and things like that, and going over actual simulated cases. And so actually UT Southwestern, I believe, has approved this opportunity for actual shadowing hours, just kind of given the situation right now. And so you probably won't get too many hours from it, but it's something definitely to consider. We can't say the same for every medical school. This is just Southwestern, but if it becomes a more popular program, absolutely it can be something that other medical schools consider as well. But yeah, sometime in November, just keep an eye out. Follow pre-health. Well, yeah, go to virtualshadowing.com and get some more information about our program, and sign up for our mailing list. So we'll keep you in touch.
All right, thanks, Cheyenne. All right, so we can move on to the MCAT stuff now. And Kevin's gonna take over.
All right. Hey guys. So yeah, we are running a little bit short on time, but that's totally okay. We're going to try and do as many of these slides as possible. But yeah, this slide is just a brief overview of the MCAT. MCAT stands for your medical college admission test. It is traditionally taken in your junior year, but like we said, if you are planning to take a gap year, your schedule will definitely change. You could push it by a year if you wanted to. And then it is, needless to say, it is a very important factor in your med school applications. It's one of the most important, but also just to say, it is just another factor as well. There are other aspects of your application that are also considered as well during interviews and during the entire app cycle. So just keep that in mind as we go through the next questions. The paragraph on the right is just a little overview about the 4 main sections, or the content sections on your MCAT. We have a CP section, which is chemistry and physics based. We have a CARS section, which everyone dreads. It's the critical analysis and reading section. We have a bio and biochem section, B&B section. And then our last section is PS. It's our psychology and sociology section. So that is just a little background information to an upcoming question we have. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on our first of 8 questions. Fatima, if we can move to the next slide. Thank you. But yeah, our first question is, when did you guys start studying for the MCAT, and how long did your MCAT preparation last?
So I started studying for my MCAT in May of 2019, so last year. And I took my MCAT August of 2019. So that was about 3 months. And before that, I did not even know what the MCAT was.
Yeah, my preparation for the MCAT, I say, is probably something that no one should do. I thought I started studying the MCAT in May. I was planning on taking it in January, but then I realized that I was kind of just like messing around, which you should not do. If you're starting the MCAT, you should like take it and have a plan. I didn't have a plan. So I guess my actual prep was from November 2019 to January 2020, and that was a whirlwind. I have blocked that winter break out of my mind. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel what Faraz was saying about not having a plan. I kind of winged it a little bit, but well, initially I actually signed up for that Princeton review class at UTD. Like the whole, you go in lecture and they talk about every course and things like that, and they give you and access to their prep material. I personally don't recommend it unless you really, really need someone to like, sit with you and say, this is exactly what you need to do, this. I don't think it's worth the money. But you can find a lot of free resources online. Like, I don't know, for people who are users of Reddit, MCAT subreddit has tons of free resources on there for you. And so but yeah, I mean, I started studying for my MCAT basically when I signed up for the Princeton class, which was in November. And then it was like last November. And then I took my actual MCAT in March. So it was about 7 months, the first half of which was very not really real studying. It was just on and off. And then towards the second half, I started to buckle down and did my own prep outside of the Princeton review course because I couldn't keep up with it in the middle of my semester and things like that. So if you were to prepare for the MCAT, definitely give yourself 3-4 month block uninterrupted and not taking any hard courses, ideally over a break. That's when you'd want to do it. So.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I can definitely attest to how difficult it is to study for the MCAT during a semester with all of your classes and other pre-med activities that we're doing. So yeah, definitely I agree. 3 to 4 months is definitely isolated 3 to 4 months with the MCAT as your main focus is definitely something very, very essential to I guess properly prepare for this exam. The next question kind of ties into this. It says, what are the best resources from programs to books and other resources as well? And ways to study and prepare. What are the best resources and ways to study and prepare for the MCAT? I guess we can tweak it to say, in your opinion, what were the best resources that worked for you? And if someone wants to also mention, I guess, their experience with like the MCAT subreddit and SDN or their opinion on either of those, I feel like those are resources that aren't really quoted as much, but definitely important to talk about a little bit.
Anyone?
Yeah, so the reason why I say May 2020 is because that's when I signed up for the MCAT Princeton class. And like Shan was saying, I personally didn't find it that helpful. I think that the majority of my studying came from Khan Academy, which is completely free. I honestly did not open a single textbook that Princeton gave me. I just came in to the class and just sat there. Kind of like passively absorbing information, but active studying was through Khan Academy. And I think the most important thing for me was the practice exams because they actually show you how to answer the questions in a high stress environment. And for help with Reddit and SDN, I mostly went on Reddit like towards the end, like last month that I was studying for the MCAT, and I was already high stress, and sometimes you go on Reddit and everyone has their like little usernames with their little tags with the MCAT scores on there, and that's not very fun, but a lot of people are on there and they have great resources. Sometimes if there's a practice question and you aren't getting the correct answer and you're not understanding the party's like explanation for it, you can go to Reddit. And sometimes they'll often have like a simpler way to explain that question.
Yeah, for me, so I took the Princeton review course also. I took it this summer between my sophomore and junior year, and I just couldn't really keep up with it just because I was doing a lot of things I was also doing a lot of things that summer. Like I was doing research, I was shadowing, I was volunteering, I was taking courses, like I was taking genetics, which is it's already a difficult class. So I didn't use it at all. I feel like I feel like the class itself, the face-to-face was kind of not useful at all for me. But the resources they gave me were like, in my opinion, fantastic. Like I remember like my score in like that month, like I literally like it went up like a lot more than I thought it was gonna. And then which is like amazing because a lot of stuff they offer is not only like their own stuff, but they also give you access to AAMC stuff and AAMC stuff, which is like the people who make the actual MCAT. Their stuff is extremely useful. It's very representative of the exam, and they give you a lot of different practice questions, practice tests. They even have this thing where they break down what they ask in each section. Like they give like little topics on what they ask in each section. So if you're not going to do the Princeton review course, like make sure to at least invest in the AAMC stuff, just because I felt that was the most useful for me. And as far as like Reddit, as far as like extraneous resources, I did UWorld for like one of my weaker sections, which is OChem, which helped me boost my score. Reddit, I highly recommend looking at the 87-page PsychSoc document. Just memorize that. That's basically all I did for PsychSoc because that was already like one of my strongest sections. So I just basically memorized the 87-page one. There's two of them. There's one 87 one and then one 300-page one. The 300-page one I'd never looked at, so I don't know. I can't speak on it. But 87-page one, like, definitely covered there's nothing on the exam that I wasn't familiar with. And as far as SDN, I feel like SDN is probably one of the most like toxic sites you can go to, because I feel like everyone just instantly runs to SDN to flex flex their thing. Like, would that be interviews? It'd be like the second they get the interview, they'd be like, interview, exclamation mark. And I'm like, why? Like, yeah, but don't go to SDN. I wouldn't recommend it unless you like are very confident that you're like the top of the top, best of the best, and you want to compare yourself against people. But I just wouldn't recommend it for anyone, honestly.
If you want imposter syndrome, that's where you
Yeah.
go. Also, those two documents are the exact same, and the 87 is just condensed.
And yeah, what Faraz was saying about the AAMC material, in the last month of your prep, you should focus mainly, if not only, on the AAMC material. I personally think that the real MCAT was very, I'd say the section banks that AAMC offers are very representative of the real MCAT. It's difficult. The question packs for all the science sections are pretty like useless. I mean, you should do them anyways because AAMC wrote them, but the CARS question packs 1 and 2 are the most important CARS resources that you'll have. So don't put CARS off. Definitely start preparing from day 1 on CARS. Even if you're an English major, it's nothing like you've seen before. So definitely don't put that off. And but yeah, AAMC, do practice tests at least maybe once a week as you're prepping. And yeah, I use Princeton review books. They're too much information. Maybe Kaplan's a better balance. And if you're in a real time crunch, Exam Crackers is a good, very condensed version for content reviews. So it just depends on what your strengths are for the various sections of the MCAT.
And sorry, just to add on, I know we're running late on time, but I think that Next Step, I think they changed their name to Blueprint, is a great third-party resource for exams. That's mainly where I got most of my exams from. And also for actual sections, I use the Princeton Review CARS workbook and the science workbook for like just targeted practice in certain sections, because they're really hard questions, but that kind of forces you to perform at a higher level than what is actually needed.
All right, perfect. Just to add on, I mean, when you said CARS QPAC 1, I mean, it brought back horrible memories about that Picasso passage. So thank you for that. Man, it was tough, but it's definitely something that I guess it's an experience. It's something we all go through. And also just to add on just a little bit about courses, if you plan on, I mean, even if you plan on self-studying versus taking a prep course, in the end, it really comes down to, self-studying afterwards, after that prep course, because I feel like, a prep course, although it'll give you a really good baseline, really you have to tailor that preparation to your strengths and weaknesses. So regardless of whichever one works for you or whichever one you choose, in the end, you definitely do have to switch it up a little bit and tailor it to your strengths and weaknesses when prepping for the MCAT. The next question, sorry, I know we are definitely running short on time, but the next question, let's see. If it were possible, what is something you would have done differently when you were preparing for the MCAT? I guess thinking back, if there was something you wish you would have done differently.
I have one word answer, and that's the Princeton Review. Oh, I guess that's 2 words. I would not have done that class.
Same.
The biggest thing for me was I would have prioritized practice over content. I thought, like, when I'm going into it, like when I was like a young impressionable sophomore, I thought the MCAT was gonna be like content, and then like I took my first practice test, and I'm like, oh, I did pretty well on that, and then like I did like a month of content, and then during my time where I thought I was studying, and then my score like went up like 1 point, and I was like, oh, and then I started doing practice, and then my score like shot up to like a very like the score that I wanted. So definitely MCAT's a lot more about just practice than content than you realize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same with everyone else. What they were saying, I would spend at least more than half of my time doing practice rather than content review, especially if you're spending months and months preparing for the MCAT. A lot of the stuff you initially learn in the beginning of your MCAT study days, you're going to forget by the end of it. so what good will that do? You know, you need to practice. You need, this MCAT is a test of endurance and really test skills, really. I mean, like, for example, the best tip that I can give you is on test day or any prep exam that you're doing, don't linger on any one question. They're all worth the same in each section. And so flag it. If you're spending more than like 45 seconds and you just like, I don't know anything at all, like this question, I'm blank, there's no way I'll ever get it, just flag it, pick C or something, and move on. I did that on the exam day and it saved my life. Do not linger on any one question. It's going to kill you and you're going to really hate yourself for that. Just a little candid.
All right, perfect. Since we're running short on time, I'm wondering, Fatima, if we can skip all the way down to the question where it's like, what other activities did you do? I think it's perfect right there. And hopefully we can get done with the last 3 questions, and then then I'll let our panelists go. I know we've held them back for too long. But for this question is, what other activities did you do in that block of time that you set aside for studying for the MCAT? So that 3 to 4 months, like most of you said, where you really just focus on the MCAT, what else did you do as well?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, I was working in my research lab and I was doing scribing at the ER. And I think they were stress relievers just because I cannot study an entire day just focused on MCAT or something like that. So I'd study about 4 hours throughout the day, and I'd go into lab, or if I was doing scribing and if it was a slow day, maybe I'd like go through some of the questions that I had there. But yeah, it was more of like it was all very dispersed.
Yeah, for me, like if I'm counting like my actual studying from like November to January, I did literally nothing else. I'd wake up like at 6 a.m. and I'd study until 10 p.m. and I'd maybe leave my room for like meals, and I'd just ask my mom to come bring them to me, which I don't recommend. I recommend doing things like time stress relievers, seeing people, and when you see the people, don't talk with the MCAT, because definitely keeping like a level mind and not being stressed is the most important thing.
For me, I actually took only 11 credit hours in the fall that I started studying for the MCAT, because I knew that I was going to anticipate having to study. And so other than that, just community service events through AD. And I worked part-time as a pharmacy technician. And whenever I got the chance, I worked with music. But yeah, just kind of didn't really do much besides MCAT in that time. Either studying for the MCAT or worrying about it, even if I wasn't studying. So yeah, that was me.
All right, perfect. Second to last question. Generally, when studying for tests, there's a point where you plateau and it feels like nothing you're doing is helping. Did any of you go through this or experience this? And if so, what steps did you take to, I guess, overcome that plateau?
Yeah, I plateaued a lot. So I had, from the very beginning, I had about 12 practice exams. And so I did my 3 TPR practice exams and I flatlined there. And then, I guess I was fortunate, but I had to move on to a different company. And so I did 6 next step blueprint exams. And yeah, I ended up plateauing there. And then I went to AAMC. So when I plateaued, I just switched companies. And I don't know if that's a good answer, but it helped me.
For me, actually, I didn't plateau. I went down. With every test that I took, I got lower and lower, and I was like, great, this is perfect. And so it was weird. I mean, I think it came down to test strategy, like I was saying, just kind of lingering on questions that I was like, man, I got this, I have to get this, and then like missing all the easy ones at the end. I'm just kind of like that. And then at the very end, I decided to switch it up and employ more testing strategies rather than content review or anything like that. Because like I said, it's a test of endurance and testing skills. At the end, I employed those strategies and then I shot up a couple points. I went back up on my last practice test. And then on the actual MCAT test day, my score was like a couple points even higher than any full length test that I took. So that last minute testing skills and testing strategies really helped personally for me. So that would be something you should look into.
All right. And our last question, when studying for the MCAT, how did you keep your motivation up? I know a lot of us kind of refer to the MCAT as, that 3-month, 4-month long haul. It's definitely a marathon when studying for this. So how did you keep your motivation up? What were some things that you guys did to stay motivated for the MCAT and I guess pre-med in general during this extended period of studying? And also, if you guys want to add right after this, just one biggest piece of advice, just a one-liner, just to wrap it up, one really big piece of advice that you can offer any student who's, I guess, currently studying for the MCAT or about to start preparing for the MCAT.
I'd say the biggest way that I kept my motivation up for when I was studying for like 14 hours a day during that winter break was that I just really thought about where I'd be like right now. Like right now I'm sitting at like all these interviews, all these acceptances, and I was like, and in my mind, just this January, like 9 months ago, I just really wanted to like succeed. And I thought about, I wanted to be a doctor, like not for myself, not for my family, but like I wanted to like help people. And then I felt that honestly, I just felt that I wanted, like, I wanted to be the one to carry through this. I wanted to put in the hard work so I can help other people. So I feel like really being true to like the whole reason why you started medicine is really important. Because as mentioned before, MCAT is probably, well, for me, it was like the most daunting part of going through like a biology degree and applying to med schools. That was by far the most difficult. So just knowing why you're there and like why you want to score well in the MCAT is the biggest pusher. And I guess my one piece of advice would be that once you start studying, don't half-ass it. Like a lot of people, they start studying and then they kind of fall off and things happen, life happens. And I totally agree with you. And I totally agree with anyone who like has to deal with it. But just realize that this portion of your at least few months, or this month and a half for me, in my case, you have like a goal, and it's better to like just get the pain over with. Just grind as hard as you can for that timepiece, and just don't half-ass it, because I promise you, you'll regret it. And like that trip that you take to San Antonio or something, like it won't be worth being like disappointing yourself later on.
Yeah, piggybacking off of that, I think that something that helped me stay motivated, like Roz was saying, envisioning yourself as a doctor, for me, because I was actually in the ER and seeing all the doctors work, and going like seeing what their daily workload was like and getting to meet new patients, things like that. That was super motivating for me because I got to I could imagine myself in their position. And so that really motivated me to keep working at the MCAT, but also like diversifying your interests. Like I said earlier, I can't study for like extended periods of time like that. So doing other things that I thought were productive, but also that like kind of took my mind off the MCAT for a little bit. And one piece of advice is to have a study plan. I think the biggest thing that helped me out was to have a study plan that I made with a friend of mine who had already taken the MCAT. And by modeling mine off of hers, I was sure to like stick to it. And that way I didn't get sidetracked and I was able to finish in one clean sweep.
What helped me kind of stay motivated while I'm studying for my MCAT was kind of find people who are also studying for the MCAT and keep each other accountable. If you can study in a group as long as you're not sidetracked. I know that's the problem that a lot of us have, but just kind of holding each other accountable, studying for the MCAT, not doing it alone. It does help personally to stay motivated. But as far as if I were you and you're starting to study for your MCAT right now, the biggest advice I can give you is start practicing early. Don't focus too much on content review. Don't spend months on it, maybe just at the most, maybe 1 month on content review, and just focus on practicing the rest of it. And don't put cars off. Big mistake, I did that. And it was stressing me out until test day. I was so lucky on test day. I got like really easy to read articles about like pit bulls and just very easy, fun things to read. You may get like what I was talking about with Kevin, the Picasso article, and you're gonna know it when you get there. It's terrible. Very abstract articles that are very boring. You're gonna fall asleep halfway through and you can't answer any of the questions. So just kind of study for that early, the car section. But you got this, guys. Good luck.
All right, perfect. That's all the time we have for all of these questions. I know we missed a couple of questions that we did have in the slides. Don't worry, all of this will be addressed in our MCAT workshops. Our next one is November 7th. So if you guys want to, I guess, get to know the answers and get a little bit more advice on the MCAT, definitely try and attend that. I want to thank all of our guest speakers today. Thank you so much, Shayan, Faraz, and Noreen. Your advice is super, super valuable, and I know a lot of members definitely benefited from this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna wrap it up with the last few slides. So let's go back to the contact one.
So just as a reminder, and as always, you can contact us via email on the official website or on our socials. Please also double check that your MD points are up to date. You can access your MD points on our website at moldingdoctors.com. Be sure to check your UTD emails for updates in the weekly emails and other updates via social media. And as a reminder, our next meeting will be on November 5th, same time, same place.
So now we're going to do risk management, but I wanted to thank you guys, Faraz, Cheyenne, and Noreen, once again for coming. So we're going to quickly run through risk management and the sign in. I posted in the chat, but I can post it again, but it's also at the end of the slide. I also posted on GroupMe if you guys want to see it there. All right, Dheeraj.
All right, so risk management. This is just something that SOC makes us do. I have no say in it, so whatever. No hazing. There should be no hazing of any kind. Fire safety. You guys know what to do. Just evacuate the building. Alcohol, drug policy. Don't be stupid. If you are 21 and older, that is the legal drinking age. Travel policy. Again, don't be stupid. Wear your seatbelt. Get a car that fits all the passengers, etc., etc. But we're not traveling anytime soon, so don't do that. And then lastly, consult any UTD resources, numbers, emergency procedures. That'll all be listed in the slides. We will post these slides on our website, on GroupMe, etc., etc.
All right, well, there you have it. Fatima?
All right. Yeah, so this is the sign-in link. Shri, did you switch it out?
I did. Oh, no, sorry, I didn't. Let me.
Did you just fix the settings?
Magic.
Yes, no.
Oh wait, it should have refreshed. I put it in the chat, also on the GroupMe.
Okay.
But yeah, I just changed it on the PowerPoint.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm just refreshing it to see if.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we had to switch out the link. Yeah, so guys, don't forget to sign in to get 2 points for
Yes.
attending.
And then, like Anmol said, there will be a recap email on Monday that Fatima will send. And our next meeting is November 5th. And most likely we'll go over summer opportunities, research, and other opportunities like programs. Obviously with COVID, that might look different from last year if you attended that. But yeah, it will also be live November 5th at same time. But yeah, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to our panelists. If you guys want to watch this later, it's always available on YouTube. But yeah, any other last minute questions or comments by anyone? Okay. All right. Well, thank you everyone. Hope you guys have a great night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, guys.